Recently, my younger sister came back from abroad, and with her, she brought a little book titled Tuesdays with Murray. It's a book about an old dying man named Murray who was dealing with a terminal illness called ALS. Now, Murray used to be a beloved sociology professor at a local college, and in the book, he's described as someone who's open-minded, warm, and energetic, kind of like me, right? And for his students, Murray was more than just a teacher. He was more like a father figure and a mentor. In fact, he was so deeply loved by his community, an article was written about his illness, and he even appeared on a TV show sharing his story. Now, as soon as his story became public, as soon as his diagnosis became public, his house started to become flooded with visitors, most of whom were his former students, were colleagues, and random strangers who were simply fascinated by his story. And among those visitors was one particular student whose name was Mitch, who used to be really close with Murray. And after reuniting with his old former professor, the student Mitch and the professor Murray, over the time Murray had left to live, which was a couple of months, would start spending their Tuesdays together. Now, during these weekly meetings, Mitch, the student, would come up with fascinating topics and questions that he had about life, and Murray, the professor, would so lovingly share his wisdom with his favorite student. After carefully documenting this interaction, Mitch, the student, would go on to publish the book titled Tuesdays with Murray, in honor of the life and impact of his mentor. After I finished reading that book, I started thinking of someone who's quietly and slowly becoming somewhat of a mentor, an unlikely mentor to me. We'll call this person Mr. T. Now, Mr. T is not a college professor. As a matter of fact, he doesn't even have a degree. Mr. T is the electrician at our office building, and I would say Mr. T is in his mid-60s. He has a tall, slim build, and just like Murray, Mr. T is loved and respected by the people around him. And although Mr. T and I don't usually spend our Tuesdays together, whenever I had things that needed to be fixed around the office, he was my go-to guy. Recently, I called Mr. T to help me install some fixtures around the office, and I vividly remember it was evening time. And so after we finished setting things up, we were both fairly exhausted, so we decided to take a sit for a moment, and that moment would spark a conversation that I don't think I'll ever forget. The conversation came about when I asked Mr. T what he was like as a young man, and as soon as I asked that question, it was almost like as if he was waiting for me to ask that question, because as soon as I asked that question, he said, "You know, Henok, life gave me 3 shots, 3 to be exact, to make something of myself." And as soon as he said that, I got really curious, and I said, "You know, what happened?" As a bright young man in his early days, Mr. T, hungry for knowledge, went to the University of Asmara to pursue his education. And despite his ambition and desire to succeed, he ended up, due to reasons that he did not disclose to me, he ended up getting dismissed and not graduating, which was obviously devastating for him. And after his dream of obtaining a college degree got crushed, he returned back home and, with the help of his friend, started a small business. That business was importing used clothes or second-hand clothes from Djibouti and selling them in the local market. To his surprise, this business actually turned out to be quite a profitable venture that actually made up for his lost dream of pursuing an education. And now that he has earned quite a bit of money from his business, he set his sights on doing one thing: buying a house. You see, by this time, Mr. T was a family man, he was married, and so he wanted to provide his family a place they can habitate, a place they can call home. However, in the process of trying to secure a home for his family, Mr. T ended up getting entangled or getting involved with the wrong people and ended up losing all of his money. Now, losing all of his money also meant that he no longer had sufficient finance to sustain his business, so he was forced to shut it down. I can tell this experience was exceptionally painful for him, that impacted him deeply by the way he recounted the story to me. But giving up was not an option for Mr. T, because at the end of the day, he had a family to support. He had a family to feed. So Mr. T decided to move to Sudan in search of a job, which is where he became a seasoned electrician. And after moving to Sudan and working for a couple of years as an electrician, another tragedy would strike. While he was working as an electrician, Mr. T would end up falling from the second floor of the building that he was working on and severely injuring his back. And after that incident, he obviously could not go back to Sudan to pursue his career. As he was telling me his story, what struck me the most wasn't the fact that he actually went through all of these things. What I found fascinating was that when I looked at his face, I didn't see a man that was defeated. When I looked at his face, I saw a man that gave everything that he had and now is at peace with where he is in life. I saw a man who, despite his misfortunes, was willing to kindly and openly share the intimate details of his life with me. That night, I realized that mentorship doesn't always come dressed in accolades, success, or prestige. Sometimes it is found in the most unconventional places, from the ordinary lives of people like Mr. T, who without even trying can teach us life's most valuable lessons. Sometimes mentors are found in the shadows. Back to you.